don't know if this is, I would love to hear more about how.
All right, let me throw out a question to the panel and then we'll take more questions. I'm just thinking about language development. What we know is that we live in a culture that demands all kinds of language at a very young age, and the more up the social scale you are, the more. So I do music in a preschool in an affluent neighborhood, and the buzzword is use your words, you know. And what I've seen over the years is actually increasing anxiety in children, young children, because they don't have the cognitive development yet. So when a young child, like say a toddler, falls down, what they need is to be picked up and held, not to say, tell me where it hurts, because they can't, or they don't know, or they don't have the language or whatever. So, and yet we're saying that language development is the critical part to everything. So where do we go with that? I mean, and some cultures are not. Don't place the premium on use your words or talking, you know. And you can see kids are perfectly cared for. They're strongly attached, and they have no vocabulary by the time they're 2 or 3. And we know this is going to hurt them down the road in a variety of ways. So, how do we deal with that language issue? You're the language expert.
Well, okay, so
let me put you on the spot.
Sure. So one thing that I kept thinking about in terms of the theme of the conference is joy of childhood generally.
Celebrate the joy of childhood.
Celebrate the joy of childhood. Okay, but just in terms of language development and the toddler falling down and use your words or whatever, a thing that I think, again, probably less so for people in this room, but that grown-ups are quick to overlook in being envious of things about how they perceive children's lives to be, is the joy of adulthood. And in particular, we see that, that the distinct, tearful, immense frustration of a kid trying to communicate an idea to you, and they keep saying the same syllables, and you're reaching for things, or you're trying to take their perspective, and you're both so frustrated. And just that as a reminder of that we, by and large, live the inverse, that we have this just glorious set of symbols that we exchange really easily and do, for the most part, understand each other really well, and how, just as a reminder for sympathy for the plight of kids who do watch us do that, and watch how much we're able to exchange ideas, and how long, relatively long it takes them to get there. And then in terms of other contexts, what are you, when you're thinking of other contexts where there's maybe less vocabulary, are you thinking sort of other cultural contexts? Or are you thinking socioeconomically?
Yes. Both, because we know there's a socioeconomic connection to language.
Yeah.
But there are also cultures where babies don't have to talk, and mommies don't talk to their babies, and yet babies' needs are met, and they've created that outside the womb.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's okay for me to chime in. I think so much of that talks about attunement and being attuned to the child, because I think different people are going to express themselves differently. And I think this is where it's important for us to have a multicultural framework. I think in the Western culture, we look at this is the right way, and this is the way, right? And there is something to be said about being able to name emotions, and I think being able to understand and express that, and I think that helps a lot of people. But when we can use a broader multicultural framework, then you're looking for understanding, right? And you're looking for that communication. And when you look at systems of oppression, and you think about the history of America in particular, right? People have had to learn to have code languages because the mainstream culture didn't quite work for them, right? So we talk a lot about code switching, and there's a lot of things around just me looking at you or me being quiet, and the ability to observe that was an underground language that different people have had to create because of their social economic status or because of the conditions that were brought to them. And so I just want us to as we think about language and the importance of that, also the non-language that is happening, what is being expressed and what is being observed and what is fully being communicated, so that we're understanding each group or each person's situation.
I just wrote down, I see you're trying, and that's the first line of a song I haven't written yet. And I'll write it on the way home. But I think it's a really important thing to say to children, because I think if a kid is up against the wall and freaking out, you can pretty much forget quality conversation. But if you say, I see you're trying, why don't you take a break? Why don't you go find your favorite blankie and let's talk in 5 minutes. I'm seeing a lot of nodding. Has anybody tried that?
Another thing that goes along with that is I can tell, I see that you really have an idea and you're trying to tell me something and I'm having trouble understanding. So let's figure it out, which takes the onus off of,
Right.
and that child will stay with you for as long as it takes you to figure it out, you know, if we don't get mad in the meantime.
What I've noticed is that
Can you
parents,
say loud?
what I've noticed is parents aren't talking to their children like they used to before computers and cell phones even. So what I'm seeing, even with people who have needs, they are not interacting. So those kids are speaking later and later because they're being talked to and not talked with. It's not a general conversation. It's more like, go do this, but there's no expectation for words to come back at those kids.
And the conversation is, put that damn thing down.
The child needs to learn to tell the parent.
Well, and
Right.
you know, I think preliminary research is coming in on how bad that is. We don't know yet, but we know that brains are going to be altered and our circuitry is going to be different. And so this panel, this conversation in 5 or 8 years is going to be different than it is today.
Well, and I think to that point is putting it down, but then also this concept of play and song and community, right? Like, I mean, my daughter's here and she knows, like, we got games for days at home. So whether it's Uno or headbands or do you see what I see, like, it's this constant ability to have conversation and play with each other so that there is that interaction to cultivate the language and the activities that are happening versus just the silence of like, here's the screen.
Yeah.
That is happening in so many homes. They all are sitting
Yeah.
on the call, but they are not personally talking or interacting, but they're chatting through the screen.
Yeah.
And that's the best babysitter that parents have discovered, but they are not realizing the consequences.
Well, and that goes back to the commercialism that he talked about, right? Is the marketing people have figured out that this screen, I'm gonna help you with your addiction,
Yes.
right? Because I know parents want a quiet moment, and I know kids like some flashy bright lights. So here you go, right? And that's gonna make profit, but is that helping the child develop?
And what I would notice when I was in a center is parents would come in and hand their cell phone. The child would be walking in with the cell phone, just looking at it. There was no conversation between parent and child. And then they wondered why their kid wasn't speaking at 3.
Why their kid what?
Wasn't speaking at age 3.
Yeah.
Talking.
I was working with a school and with middle school age kids, and many of the kids went home and worked on a computer, you know, or played on a computer. And it was a real dilemma, and we never came up with a good solution, but for the parents who were not there for the most part because they're out working, that was the only way that their kids could be safe, was to be in the house. And the computer kept them busy so they didn't have to worry about supervision. I mean, a middle schooler, you could argue maybe not should be left alone, but you know, the screen became a babysitter,
Yeah.
and it meant a real need, a legitimate need. So maybe then that we come back to how do we recognize the needs and meet them in ways that we know are better for children and parents, therefore families, but that are also practical. I mean,
Yeah. So I think in terms of like I have studies on this now, but in terms of the like socioeconomic point of different amounts of speech and the meeting needs while supporting development of kids who are going to have chances at doing whatever they want to do in the society that we're in currently. Just the like obvious point that in a lot of the cases where kids aren't getting enough speech, if you think about yourself in a stressful situation, how much shorter you are, how much sort of like less sensitive to the person that you're talking to you are, and how much we love focusing on sort of individual fixes like within the individual. So the person needs to like talk to their kid more, and they need to put the phone down more. Not that those aren't like real behaviors. But when the issue is much bigger, that like if you have a parent who is stressed and is thinking and is like having to think about how they're going to be allocating their paycheck across the different debts that they have, and whatever, meeting all the needs of their household, that it is also that person knows that their kid needs to be spoken to and knows the parent they want to be and doesn't have bandwidth to do that, and that is a place in terms of like computers as childcare and everything, that's a place where we could be thinking a ton bigger about community childcare systems, and so that kids are getting real social interaction without overtapping the resources of individual needs.
I have something to say about this because in our play group, I work for a local group, we have some policies. We have when a new parent, a new family comes to the door, we talk to them and explain, here we don't use cell phones.
Yeah.
During play group, please don't use your cell phone. If you have something really important, you can go outside, make a call and come back. Because this is a quality time. You are here to play with your child. You are here to interact. You are here to learn. And I think parents in the beginning, in general, when they come, they don't know how to play with their kids. A lot of parents, they don't know what to talk. And our work as educators is model.
Yeah.
Show how to read a book. How to read a book for something very simple. Looks like very simple. But a lot of parents don't know. And it's very, just a couple of weeks, we have this family who came to the group. The girl doesn't talk. She's like 2 years old. But what we notice in one morning, the parents don't talk to the child. They don't talk, they don't play, they don't interact. Well, no wonder why this girl doesn't talk. Because there is no interaction, there is no connection. Yeah. And then later we found out the dad has some disability, so we are kind of learning this story. So there is a reason, but there is also the side of how do I play with my child?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know.
And I think to that point is that we are so isolated now more than ever. We have all the technology in the world, and especially parents, I think, experience so much social isolation that they need somebody to show them how to be comfortable in their own skin as a parent, and to be reminded that I am my child's first teacher, and like what Rosanna and Cassandra and the rest of our teachers do, is like they model for them how to play and interact, and they're like, oh, like I could do that, like I could count, and we could color together, and we could like check out Play-Doh and both be excited about playing with Orbeez. Like these are new concepts that I think like a lot of our parents who are in isolation are learning as they come into a community environment, as they're learning songs and different rituals, as they're exploring with the child. It is a co-creation process. And I think that for any parent, there's no greater motivator to do better and to improve yourself than having a child, right? And if you want for your child what you didn't have, and if they're doing it, it gives you permission to do the same thing.
Do you think a parent could say to their child, you know, I'm having a real difficulty monitoring and limiting my time on screen. I'd like to have a conversation with you about what I can take responsibility for, and wonder if you, you know, have that conversation with me. I wonder if that would be a better in than put that damn thing down.
Oh, I'm sure.
I had a parent of a toddler telling me, do you let them watch TV with their parents?
Can you say it louder?
I know, toddler.
No,
Sorry.
they asked her earlier.
Parent was asking me,
Yeah.
I said, why do they do that? Sorry. Why do they need TV of everything? And they need to talk, interact.
So a parent asked her about why they need TV.
Why do
Wait, why children may need TV, right? And
Why they
so-
need it?
That the parents said, but my child needs it. I said,
Oh,
okay,
but they
who
said-
created that need? Think about that first.
Whose need is it?
Who created? You created that need for your convenience, for your, yeah, but then she takes so much time to eat. I said, yes, you just put some screen and shove food. You need to interact. Child needs to know what she's eating, how she has to learn to eat, all those things. Oh, but she doesn't let us do it. I said, if you try and give her a chance, an opportunity, she's going to. So think about the needs that parents are creating for their children.
Yeah.
Somebody, what?
And parents think that spend time with kids is like net each other and show them put on the iPad. They consider that spend time with their kids. So I saw that a couple times that mom on iPad, the kids is on, well, kid on the iPad, mom on the iPhone, and they say, oh, I spend time with them all the time. I say, how do you guys spend time together? Oh, we're in the same room, next to me, and they, you know, lean on me. But what did you guys do? Oh, we're on iPad and technology. I say, that's not how you socialize. That's not like interaction. And I said, well, that's the only way we do it at home. I said, then you should change the way you do it at home.
Yeah, I saw a cartoon like that where they showed a family of 4 people and they're all on their screen, and it's a wall in between every single one of them because there's no interaction that's happening. You're certainly sharing space and breathing the same air, but you're not quite interacting.
There was a book today here, like Good Night Moon, Good Night iPad.
Yes.
And so it's got it in the wrapper. It
I love
needs
that.
to be given to all parents, I think.